First of all, let me congratulate you on making it this far in the course. It means you are determined to develop your thinking skills and become an expert strategist. And to show you my appreciation, I will tell you a little secret. The secret is, I know 49 questions is way too much to remember. The number is simply too high for anyone, including myself. Yet, this model is the only tool I use when doing my consulting work. So how does this work? My solution is simple. I only actively remember just 7 of the questions in the model. They are the ones in the third column, the ones that relate to the observing of a company. Those 7 I have top of mind at all times. What is it that the company actually does? What assets does it own? Who are the customers? Where are they? What happened in the past? What caused changes? And what trends are important? I use these 7 basic questions as my starting point for thinking and work from there. And for good reason. Not only does the answering of these 7 questions represent 80% of the work we need to do, the other questions also logically precede or follow this basic set. And therefore it isn't hard for me to come up with the other questions when I need them. Here you see the 7 questions I'm talking about. They concern what we want to observe about companies. And let me explain why they form the heart of the strategy script model. We know that it is ultimately about making better decisions, and therefore we need the envisioning phase. But a decision is an outcome. It is not the actual work. And making the big decisions that are pivotal for a company's fortunes is hardly ever done by just one person. Nearly always, the discussing of plausible futures that takes place in the envisioning phase is a group effort. It means you don't do the thinking alone in this phase. If we remember that, we can see that it really is your job to be prepared for such discussions. Therefore, you do need to go through the observation and sense-making phases. However, keep in mind that the sense-making phase aims for developing ideas about how value can be created. Such ideas must always be checked with others. Once you understand that, it becomes clear that you need good reasons for your ideas, and they, in turn, depend on the quality of your observations. Therefore, the true foundation of your wisdom rests upon the observing of companies. Does this actually mean I spend most of my time on these 7 questions in my consulting practice? Yes, it does. It is what I focus on thinking long and hard about these questions. What is it that the company does? What assets does it own? Who are the customers? Where are they? And so on. And I'll urge you to do the same and to see how the questions do not overlap and how they, when combined, cover all the things we can observe: the company, the customer, the relationship between them, and the events that changes that relation. If you do, it will also enable you to recognize that a company is, in essence, a complex adaptive system. It adapts to its environment. As it turns out, by answering these questions in the strategy script model, you actually take a systems thinking approach. And this is a good thing because systems thinking is regarded to be the best approach for dealing with complexity. So that's my secret. I focus on these 7 questions. By now we have discussed the phases in the strategic thinking process and how they correspond with the columns in the strategy script model. We also discussed what we must think about, which corresponds with the rows in the model. I showed you this results in 49 pieces of knowledge, and because I can formulate a question for each piece, we end up with a tool that consists of 49 questions. Combined, they can guide you on your journey from company-specific ignorance to company-specific strategic wisdom. It is at this point that I want to end the introduction of the strategy script model, because I promised you something else in the introduction video, which is that I would introduce the model and present 3 ideas that are likely to transform how you think about business education. The first idea is that business schools have been unable to teach you the skills you need because they lacked a model like the strategy script. I will illustrate this by using a very informative framework from the Iowa State University Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. This framework combines Bloom's well-known taxonomy of cognitive processes with 4 levels of knowledge. The result is a table in which 24 different learning objectives are identified. These objectives include basic abilities like remembering facts, but also objectives like integration and reflection. By referring to these learning objectives, I can illustrate quite precisely why business school education enables you to apply tools like the SWOT analysis or Porter's 5 forces model, but not how to integrate these findings and develop your critical thinking skills. Here you see the framework that was developed by the Iowa State University Center for Excellence in Learning and Teaching. At the bottom you see the cognitive processes. They range from the lower thinking skills of remembering to the higher order thinking skills of analysis, evaluation, and creation. As we can see, each cognitive skill corresponds with a learning objective for 4 different types of knowledge, ranging from simple factual knowledge to metacognitive knowledge, being the knowledge you have about your own thinking. As said, the intersections between cognitive processes and knowledge types inform us of 24 learning objectives. At the bottom left you see list, which would be the mentioned ability to remember facts, and at the top right we find create, which would be your ability to think about your own creation of new ideas. In this overview, especially the learning objectives in the procedural row are of interest. What you can tell from the objectives in this row is that much business school teaching results in you being able to apply theoretical knowledge. It means you're able to give general advice or to carry out a certain task based on best practices in other companies. However, we also know this theoretical knowledge is never about your situation, your company, and more importantly, it is unclear how such pieces of knowledge can be combined. It means you learn much about economics and growth options, finance, leadership, organization, supply chain management, statistics, international business, technological developments, alliances, etc. But it is impossible for you to integrate such knowledge to enable sound judgment in practice. The framework shows what is missing. It is the step between carry out and judge, which is knowledge of a procedure for integration. Business schools know this. It is why they are still looking for a model that shows you how to integrate what you learn in practice. This is where the strategy script model comes in, because it provides a detailed structure for integrating knowledge, both knowledge from theory and knowledge from practice. And because it does, it opens up the path for you to judge the past and present and design plausible futures and new solutions. Moreover, if we take a closer look, we can discover that the higher order thinking skills of analysis, evaluation, and creation actually correspond with the phases in the strategy script model. This means you can develop these important skills simply by using it. To be more precise, you will develop your analysis skills when going through the observation phase, your evaluation skills when going through the sense-making phase, and your skills to create new ideas and envision the future when going through the envisioning phase. The ultimate question for any strategist is, considering all, what should we decide? Unfortunately, this is not a question that science can answer. What to decide is not a statistical question. All strategic questions are unique because all companies are unique, and we simply cannot generalize about uniqueness. Even worse, the success we're looking for actually depends on how companies are different, not on how they are the same. That is why strategic decision making is always a matter of judgment, your judgment. Business schools are not yet able to guide you in this. The strategy script can, and this explains why it begins where business schools end. Remember the cookie factory, the funeral home, and the chain of child daycare centers? And why I was unable to compare them or decide in which company we should invest? In this lecture I showed you why I was unable to do that. It was because my business school education did not show me how to integrate and apply what I had learned, and as a consequence, I could not make reasoned judgments in these real-life cases. I also showed you this is not because business schools don't want to teach you this, believe me, they do, but because they don't know how. By pointing out that the integration of what you can observe must always precede the judgment we're looking for, I illustrated that the strategy script model can prepare you for the future job market, simply because it enables you to develop those higher order thinking skills of analysis, evaluation, and creation. And like all other key overviews, the overview I used to illustrate this can be downloaded for future reference. In the next lecture, as a sort of bonus, I wanted to offer you a simple but extremely powerful tool for improving strategic thinking. I will do this by illustrating that the infamous "so what" question in business actually consists of 3 consecutive "so what" questions. Once you know them, they can not only guide you in everyday thinking, but also in using the strategy script model, because they correspond with the 3 phases. It means you will be able to ask the "so what" questions and know how to answer them in a way no one else can. As a consequence, they make it easier for you to assess any statements about the business world on clarity, relevance, and truth value, regardless if that statement comes from you or from co-workers, from teachers, or from any other source of business world information out there, including all newspapers.